And what I tell myself when in those moments, or I'm like, gosh, I don't want to do this homework right now. It's like, or I don't want to do this workout, like, I'm just gonna like have to get through it, is I tell myself, if I do it now, I can rest later. I can like relax later, like then I can have peace, enjoy later. But what happens is there's never later, because then there's the next workout, there's the next homework, the next test. And then I just keep telling myself the same thing. And what it does is it cultivates success. And so even though like right now I consciously know, like when I'm telling myself those things, and I consciously know like there's never going to be later, like I never will actually get to rest. I mean, there is times obviously I get to, but you know what I mean? Like there's always the next thing. I still tell myself in those moments, like you got to do it now, because then your reward will be later. And I think that just kind of helps me. It's almost like tricking myself into thinking like I can do this.
Sophia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shari. I'm glad to be here.
So I have in front of me a list of some of your biggest life lessons that you've learned over your past years in high school. And in about an hour today, we're going to get through as many of these as we can.
Sounds good. I'm excited to do so.
So before we get started with that, I want to learn a little bit more about you. I know over the last few months you've been here at Peddie during your PG year because you're planning on going to the Army. So I was wondering where that started for you, this whole journey of going to the Army and being a part of the teams. I know that you mentioned in your chapel talk that it wasn't from day one that you wanted to go to the Army, right? You had a lot of changes in the path in the way, and at one point you were going to play basketball and you weren't exactly clear in your high school where you wanted to be. So talk to me about some of your earliest days of high school when you're first getting in, growing up. What was your mission in life and what were you trying to achieve with your years in high school?
Yeah, of course. So as I mentioned in the chapel talk, like I was really into basketball. I had played since I was 5 years old. Just devoted my time to that. And I remember actually gonna go into a little side story. After one of my club practices for basketball, maybe I was in like 5th grade. My mom said like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, which is funny looking back, because like entering high school, I had this plan of for sure, like I was going to play basketball in college, like that was the game plan. Devoted like all my time to that. I did other sports. I played golf all 4 seasons in the fall for at my high school. Didn't play basketball, did track in the spring. But like I was saying, definitely basketball was the number one goal. I was really excited to like start to get into the recruitment for that. I'm really interested. And with my small stature, I knew it would be harder to get recruited. But I really focused on like ball handling and being like the best point guard that I could be. And so that was my main focus, like sport-wise, for entering high school. But academically, like in order to get recruited, you gotta have really good grades. So I pushed myself, and I was in. We had this program at my high school, which was Cape and Mount Carmel in Wichita, Kansas, and it's called cum laude. It's basically like an honors track where you're like put in the hardest classes. So I did that all 4 years, just so I could like push myself to the limit with the academics, which helped with recruiting. And you know, just saying this and looking back on it, I noticed like how focused I was on sports and how that was like my main drive for everything. Also like with friends, like I have a lot of friends from those sports, which is a good thing. I think sports are a really good way to connect with people and to build those friendships. And you learn a lot of lessons in sports. But yeah, definitely started out in high school. Basketball was the main focus. But as I mentioned in my chapel talk, things started to change sophomore year when I tried out the Javelin, which is an event in track and field. And I'd never done it before, but my strength and conditioning coach, Coach Van Kuren, recommended it. And I was like, okay, I'll try this. I did track in middle school and I did hurdles, which I also continued to do throughout high school. Tried the Javelin and then ended up winning state my sophomore year. And the way like the state championships work in Kansas is there's like classes of how big your schools are. So it'll go 1A up to 6A, 6A being the biggest school. So my school's in the 5A division, and so I won like the Javelin for the 5A division. And then I stuck with it, and I was, again, still kind of like looking at basketball as an option, definitely, for college. But school started to reach out to me after that sophomore year for Javelin. And I noticed, I'm getting more interest for this sport than for basketball. But it was also difficult because that summer, actually, and another funny story, that state track meet where I won the Javelin, it turns out I had a broken foot. So I had been experiencing some pain in my right foot, and I also hurdled. And so it would just nag me like after practice, or I'd wake up in the morning, like go down the stairs and just be throbbing. And I was like, it's probably fine. Like, I don't really know what it is. And so I just pushed through it. And then I remember at the state track meet running the 300 hurdle race. We have 300 hurdles in Kansas instead of the 400. And absolutely like super painful. And I remember walking over to the Javelin runway, like wanting to cry in pain, like wincing in pain, like limping over there. Luckily, did well, performed well. With that adrenaline rush, got through the Javelin event, won that, and then go to the doctor like a week later, find out my foot is broken. So that also, having to sit out for that summer, hindered me from doing club basketball, which your sophomore year summer for club basketball was like huge, and like getting seen by coaches. And so that was kind of like it ended up being like I wasn't going to play club basketball after that. And I didn't know it yet, that my freshman year summer was the last time I played. So I think that too just kind of like led to me like thinking, like maybe Javelin will be more for me.
Talking about the injury, so did that happen through track, or what? How did the injury come about?
Yeah, so I think it was mostly track, overuse. I don't really know like how, I can't even remember when it started happening. And the thing I noticed with myself is that I have a very high pain tolerance. So like something will bother me, but I'll be like, it's not bad enough. Like I can just keep pushing through it. And I think it was just overuse from track, and also coming off of, like I was saying, like playing basketball year round. I'm also doing track, also doing golf. Like that's a lot of wear and tear on the body. And so coming off of a basketball season and then going straight into track, hurdling, which is a lot of high impact, also like throwing javelin. I think I also long jumped. And so I did and sprint, so like a lot of events. And yeah, I just started to like show up the pain. And there might have been a time, I remember this is funny, I was vacuuming at home, and my dad like had a little like 8-pound weight on like a coffee table or something, and I like went to move the coffee table, and the weight dropped on my foot. And I don't think that was like what made it break, but it definitely probably didn't help it. So that might have been it, who knows, but I definitely think overuse was probably the factor.
I want to go back to the notion of putting your eggs in one basket. And it seems to me that throughout high school, you've engaged in many different sports, right? Within track itself, throwing the javelin, running the hurdles, running other sprints as well, in addition to playing club basketball. Do you think the fear of putting all your eggs in one basket is what drove you to try all these new things? Or do you think there was another reason for why you spent so much of your high school time exploring the different paths?
That's a really good question. One that I haven't even thought about, because that advice that my mom gave me about like, don't put your eggs in one basket. Maybe it like subconsciously like stuck with me, so it could be a possibility. But I also think I wouldn't say pressure, but encouragement from my parents to do more than one sport. They kind of like thought that was a good idea. Because again, they knew that just doing the same sport over and over led to a lot of injuries. Like the first time, this is another injury, but when I was in 6th grade, I had a stress fracture on my left foot. So it's kind of a common thing of overuse, probably stemming from basketball, to get injured. So they were like, let's pick a sport in the fall that's not as like like you're not going to be running as much. You can kind of let your body take a break. And so I was deciding between tennis and golf. And my dad was like, I think tennis would be a lot of movement, like cutting on the joints on the knees. And so I decided to go with golf. And that in itself, I think was one of the best decisions. I'm glad that my parents pushed me to do that, to kind of like take a step away and try a totally new sport, which I hadn't done before. And the like mental toughness that I learned from golf helped me in everything else, like academics, my other sports, just life in general, because it's an incredibly mental game. And it's just you and your club and the ball, and you're just trying to get into the hole. And it's very difficult when you're sitting with yourself, and it's so easy to make mistakes. Like there's so many variables in your swing, weather condition, things that can go wrong. And so just using golf as like to mentally grow and to like be content with myself and to pick myself up. Because in the golf game, you, like I said, you only have yourself. In other sports, you have teammates to pick you up. So that was good to learn how to like pick myself up. But going back to like the eggs in one basket, I think too, in high school, I'm one of those people that always just likes to do everything kind of. I was also involved in like some student government type of things. I did broadcasting for the football and basketball games, which started my sophomore year. And so I just like to be involved in everything and the sports. And I think too, I would also give the advice, like don't put your eggs in one basket. Because like I was mentioning, a new door was open when I listened to someone else's advice about trying something new. And I think that stands, like you should always be open to trying something new because you never know what awaits you. And it's good, like there's so many countless opportunities when you just go in with a tunnel vision, trying to stay focused into one like outlet. Like if I just stuck with basketball, one, it may have been good. Like I may be somewhere else right now. Could have been somewhere else playing basketball. But the people I've met through golf, through track, through other activities, have been great. And I think too, getting worn out from doing one sport or like one activity, when you put all of your eggs in that one basket, sometimes you can lose love for that sport. And I think really for anything, like when you're doing it constantly, it's good to kind of like take a break, step aside, try something new. That doesn't mean that you can never go revisit that thing, that activity that you like to do. But I think like human nature, if you're constantly doing something, if it's almost like forced upon you, like you get to a point where you feel like, oh, I have to do this, that's when you lose the fun of it and lose the love for it. And so I do think just myself, like wanting to do different activities, kept the fun and the love and everything.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that because taking a break from the thing that you're always doing also helps you to get a new perspective, right? Because sometimes you're so locked into like whatever activity or task you're doing that you feel to like step back and see it all for what it really is. And maybe that period of time helped you see it from a new perspective as well. I think that's true. Or...
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it made me realize basketball isn't everything. Growing up, definitely thinking that that was the main goal, gotta get a scholarship for the sport. And I love basketball, like favorite sport, absolutely love it. But I will say, like, there was a time period where I'd be like, oh, I have to go out and shoot hoops, or I have to go out and dribble, or else I'm gonna lose my skills. Like, this won't be good. And so I was kind of getting a little worn out and like losing the fun for the game. And so I think, like you said, like taking that step back, it did give me a new perspective, and it gave me too like a renewed love for the game. Being able to like do golf beforehand, not really focus or be too worried about the upcoming season. Because I think that too, when you're like anticipating something and then you're still just like working on that one thing, like that could cause like anxiety, or you just like lose sight of other things. And so being able to take breaks, I think you're right. It definitely lets you have another perspective on whatever activity you're pursuing, and it's good. It's good for you, definitely.
So playing devil's advocate for a little bit here, I know you're very big on not putting your eggs in one basket. I know a lot of people argue that sometimes putting your eggs all in one basket can be beneficial just because it's hard to be a master at any skill if you're kind of always jumping around, right? Like I'm also a guy that's always like pretty much every year tries something new, and because of that, there seems to be an inherent lack in like one particular thing that I'm like, great at, right? And if you look at like some of the greatest to ever do it, they've always been doing it from like when they were 3 years old or 4 years old, and just doing it over and over and over and over again to achieve that sense of mastery. Now, I wouldn't say you haven't done that because you've reached a pretty good spot here. I mean, state champion in Javelin, you seem to achieve a notion of that mastery as well, despite preventing yourself from not putting your eggs all in one basket. So how do you think you drew that balance between this need to continuously come back to this one skill to develop it versus the freedom to try out new things and try out new skills and enjoy it along the way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the thing is, whenever I would be in that sport, like in the javelin, then I would put my eggs in one basket, if that makes sense. Then I'd be all in 110%. That is my main focus. That is what my goal is. The end goal is to excel at whatever I'm doing at the moment. That being said, whenever it was golf season, I focused all on golf. Focusing on that, getting my swing better, working on my mental game, things like that. And then basketball season, focusing on that. And I think you're right, like the greats, like they have gone 3 years old all the way up, focusing on that one sport for the most part. But I think too, especially for athletes, trying when you're younger, like I think putting kids in like every different sport that you can imagine is really good, because I know if you do the same repetition over and over in the same sport, you're bound to get hurt, or you're bound to I don't know, get tired or something like that. So I think when kids are younger, putting them in all different sports, and then kind of seeing like, oh, what are you good at? Then kind of focusing on that, like, oh, I found something that I'm above average good at. I don't really have to try too hard at this, like I'm already naturally good. And that's when you're like, okay, now I need to focus on this. This is what I'm gonna do. And so I think there's definitely different ways to do it, and it depends on the person too. Like I know, like Kobe Bryant, great basketball player. He just pops into my head. Like I know, like I've seen like him talk about things, the amount of dedication and work he would do in high school, especially. Like he'd wake up early, go to the gym before school, go to school, practice, get home, do some homework, maybe even go shoot some more hoops, stuff like that. And he really focused in on that. And I think that's great. I think too, I will say, is that I have a feeling like he knew, like this is what I'm gonna do. I'm pretty gifted at it, and I'm gonna keep working, and this is what I wanna do, and I love it so much that I'm willing to this is all I'm gonna focus on. But even though I did think that with basketball, I'm glad I tried other things, because it made me, now that I'm with the Javelin, now that I've found that new thing, I think sometimes, like people like Kobe Bryant, they knew. But sometimes people, they think they know, but then when they go ahead and try new things, then they're like, oh, this is my new craft. Like, I like this a lot more. Like, I'm going to be really good at this. And then from that moment, be like, okay, now I'm going to pursue this. So now that I've like thrown javelin, and I'll throw it again in the spring, and then that's where I'm recruited for to go to West Point, then like now that is my, like, I'm going to dedicate this 110%.
I want to go back to your story with golf, and I think that a lot of people have this stigma around golf that it's kind of not a sport, it's an easy sport, it's a fun sport, but you very clearly say that there is a sense of mental strength you develop through golf. So talk to me more about that. What are the pieces through golf which help you develop the mental strength? And I know you mentioned that it's more of an individual thing, there's so many little details that go into making the perfect shot. So talk to me more about the mental strength you develop through golf.
Yeah, of course. So I had 3 coaches. Coach T she was the head coach, Coach Corey, and then Coach Eric. And then Coach Corey and Coach Eric were like very good golfers. Like they know the fundamentals of golf, like your swing, like kind of how you want to play the course. And then both of them were also good with the mental game, but Coach T was specifically more honed in on like having that mental capacity. And you're right, I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's just golf, like you just go out there. And I think golf has had a huge, like a lot of people have been playing it recently. I know during like the pandemic, during COVID, like a lot of people started to get into golf. And at least from my perspective, like my brother used to never play golf, but him and his buddies like started to play around like 2020 and played just for fun. And I think that aspect of golf, like playing for fun, is great. Like it's a great game. You get to be out in the nature, just kind of chilling. Especially when you get to drive a golf cart, that's always fun. But in competitive golf, it's 18 holes. It's like you and your bag, and you're just walking all the holes. And I think, like I was saying, what's hard about it is it's just yourself. And it's so hard because the chances you have to do good on a hole are so slim. So it's like kind of reversed than any other sport. Like you want to get the lowest score. So you're almost working backwards. So like let's say it's on a par 4, which is the ideal goal is to get the ball into the hole after 4 shots. And so you really have to like strategically plan it out. Like I'm gonna hit with my driver, try to get it straight down the middle, which by the way never happens. Like even the best golfer, like you think you're gonna hit it down the middle, it's gonna go right, it's gonna go left. So that's the first hard thing. Like you have a plan, you're like, okay, gotta hit it. And like going up to the ball and like mentally preparing yourself that it is hard. Because you're like, oh my gosh, like I have one swing to get this ball forward. Like it's gotta be good. And it's a lot of pressure on yourself. And I think the main thing I learned through my coaches was just like to relax, to breathe obviously, and to put the pressure off. And like the thing is, with golf you practice so much with the swinging and everything that it becomes a habit. And so at the end, like when you're on the golf course, like during competition, you just gotta let it go, like relax, do what you do. And once the shot is done, like you gotta move on. And so like I was saying, like you gotta hit on the par 4, you gotta hit the driver, see where it goes. Then your goal is to try to hit an iron shot onto the green and then 2-putt. That would be like your standard, like solid hole. Got it in a par 4, like perfect. But it's really hard because, like I was saying, it can change. Like your swing changes, the ball will go any direction you never know. You will never have the same shot ever in golf. So that in itself was hard, is that there's so many variables and it's never the same. So it's really hard to prepare for something when you don't know what's gonna happen. And I say like my other sports, like I kind of knew what to expect. Like in basketball, you can come out with a game plan, you kind of know what to expect from the other team, you know what offenses you're gonna run. With track, you basically just go out and run. Javelin, you just gotta throw it. But golf, you're like, I have no clue what's gonna happen. And so one of the really good tips from my golf coach Corey, was that like after every shot, make sure you say something positive. Be like if I hit it and I changed it to the right, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I just changed it to the right. But he'd be like, no, you hit the ball forward. Like say a positive first. And I think that stands in life. Like looking at a situation that's already happened, you can't change it from the past. And looking at the positives of it instead of just looking at the negatives.
Are you disappointed in any way that you weren't able to pursue basketball and you ended up playing track?
I think when I first had like started to get recruited for track, I was a little bit disappointed. And I was disappointed that the level of like recruitment was lower for basketball and higher for track, because I would have loved to play basketball. Great sport. Also, there's like a huge team aspect that's really nice. Not saying track doesn't have that, but track is like individual, and then you add up all the points, then it's kind of a team. And there is team aspects definitely in track. But basketball, like you're on the court, with the other 4 players. Everyone has their role. Great dynamic. And so maybe like a little bit in the beginning, I'd say like my junior year, I was like, oh, maybe like still try to see if I can get recruited for basketball. Just kind of see where track leads me. But I think I'm really content with going ahead and pursuing track for a sport. And like I love to still play pickup basketball. And but I'd say I'm content, not too disappointed. It would have been nice, but I don't think it was meant to be for me to play basketball in college. And doing track has led me to go to West Point. And I think that'll open up so many more opportunities than I could have ever imagined if I went somewhere for basketball.
So talk to me more about West Point. So what are you looking forward to be doing there, and are you excited for it?
I'm really excited. A little bit nervous. It's kind of a tough institution to go to, the academy for West Point. But yeah, going. So why I'm nervous is it's like 4 years, like any college. But once you graduate those 4 years, you're initiated as an officer into the U.S. Army. But the summer leading into the beginning of your freshman year, you have to do a boot camp. So it's like any boot camp, like all the military academies, or if you're enlisted, you got to go through this. And I hear it's terrible, super hard, but like I am nervous about that, but also really excited. It'll be a challenge, and I've always liked any challenges that are thrown my way. I think it's good to put yourself through challenges. And then like academically, it'll be difficult. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the track team. That'll be a lot of fun. My coach, Coach Hirschberger, he's the throws coach there. He recruited me. Great guy. Really looking forward to like being coached by him, and then being with the teammates. I've met some of them. I visited a couple of times. It seems like a great dynamic for the team, for the throws program, and just the track program in general. And I think academically it'll challenge me, which is always good. And I'm looking to do some type of pre-med route. I think West Point will set me up really well for the future. I'm becoming some type of doctor, hopefully a surgeon. And then also just the idea of like being able to serve my country is really important to me. I love America, glad to be born here, glad to have that opportunity to serve. And I don't really know what the extent of my service will be yet, but I just think it's a really good opportunity. And also I'm excited for the connections. I've heard the connections you build at any academy you go to are really well and like really good, and you'll know those people like for the rest of your life. And so yeah, that'll be an exciting part as well.
Cool, glad to hear. So let's go through some of your biggest life lessons that you've had over the last few years. So first one, don't have expectations in life. That way you'll never be disappointed, but always be surprised. Talk to me about this one.
Okay, so this was said to by my friend Jacob's dad. I don't even remember what we were talking about. Who knows? I don't know, we were just in their kitchen one day, and his dad said that to me. And I like wrote it down. I have a quote book in my notes app on my phone, and most of the quotes are just like silly, like random things people say, and like so out of pocket, outrageous. But I was like looking through my quote book, and I saw that one. I was like, oh yeah, like I remember when he told me that. And I think it's an interesting outlook, like not to expect anything, because then you'll be disappointed. But then you'll be like surprised if things go well. And I think it kind of stands. Like, I agree with it. It's good advice. That being said, like when you don't expect anything, I think you should prepare for things. Like kind of have like a game plan if whatever you're going into. But don't like be like, oh, like I expect this to be like the best thing ever, or I expect this to be the worst thing ever. Like when you enter a situation or activity or like a new stage of life, to just kind of be like, okay, I'm here, I'm present in the moment. That way, whatever comes your way, like you don't like, if you had your hopes up and then they're absolutely crushed, or if you thought it was going to be terrible, then it turns out great. Like that way you're not like flipping like what you thought was going to happen. And then, like being surprised. I think it's good to be surprised. Like I said, you want to be prepared, but having like that surprise aspect of things, it makes life kind of enjoyable, and you don't know really what to expect. And some people don't like that. They like want to know everything. But I'm one of those people, like I enjoy surprises. I kind of like it when, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to show up and whatever happens, happens, and I'm going to deal with it. So yeah, I really like that quote. I think it's good advice.
Yeah, when I was reading the quote, I really liked it because I've been thinking about this concept of expectations a lot recently. And I think a lot of people believe that you need some objective or external thing to be happy, like whether it's the amount of money in your bank account or like I need this number of friends or I need this much success academically, athletically, and when I reach that number of success, then I'll finally feel happy. But I think what I've come to realize recently is that a lot of that happiness lies in where expectations lie, and it's that relativeness between like what you expected minus what you actually got. Right? Like if you expected your life to be this great and have this and this and this and you end up getting none of it, then you're going to feel very unsatisfied and very unfulfilled. But if you look at people who have very low expectations for their life and they don't think their life is going really anywhere, even if they are happy but with low expectations, when they get even something a little bit higher than their expectation, all of a sudden they'll feel fulfilled and happy. And one of the reasons I was thinking about this recently is a few weeks ago, we came back from a wrestling tournament and coach sometimes he takes us out somewhere on the way back, but this time he just gave us meal money. So I ordered DoorDash and my food, I was in the shower, so I was waiting. I come back, it got delayed by 20 minutes, and then it got delayed by 20 minutes again. And I'm calling the Dasher, and he's saying that he's at the restaurant, but the restaurant never got my order. And I'm sitting there, I'm pissed. I somehow cancel the order, I get my refund, and I'm like walking to dinner thinking like, how could this happen? Like this is so bad, and I'm so disappointed. And I was thinking to myself like, why am I so disappointed by the fact that I wasn't able to get my food so instantly, right? If someone like 200 years ago knew about the concept of DoorDash, that you can, for $20, choose any single food item you want, it'll come to your house within like 15-20 minutes, like that's insane. But the problem is that we have access to so much around us that our expectation has risen so high that even a small problem like, okay, having to go to PFS tonight will cause us such a great degree of unhappiness that I think that sure, like we've improved so much as humanity, right? We've all these technologies, but with that, our expectations have risen so much that I still think a lot of people fail to find a sense of happiness in their life.
Yeah, I think that's like you hit the spot there. That's so true, Sharia. Like you're right. Like humanity, we have evolved a lot, and like we're so used to just like being able to just like pick up our phone, order food. Or, like whenever I know some people get upset, like, oh my gosh, I don't have service on my phone. It's crazy to think that, we get angry about those things. Like we just expect to have those things, just come to us. But there's like places in the world, people who don't even have phones or, don't even use the concept of DoorDash or anything like that. And so like, I think just being content with yourself and maybe not really like expecting anything, or just like not just being like, oh, it's gonna be a great day. Which I think you should have a positive outlook on life, and you should be positive about things. But yeah, just like being content with yourself, not really getting upset about the little things, like that'll let you live a happy life.
I think it's also hard with expectations when you surround yourself with a lot of people that might be ahead of you. It's very easy to feel inferior or like not worthy or feel like not great when around you see like some of the best to ever do it. And I say this because I know a lot of people have come to Peddie and say that they felt that way because they went to high school, they felt so smart, and they come to Peddie and they sit in like one of their math classes and like everyone there's like really intelligent, right? And you go to the uncommon amongst the uncommon, and all of a sudden like you feel inferior. And I think the thing with expectations is obviously we don't want our expectations to be so high that we kind of paralyze ourselves and we can't really move to any like goal. But I think also having some expectation on you is necessary if you want to actually move toward a goal, right? Like if you want to become the best basketball player and you surround yourself with the best basketball players, you will become better, 100%. But I think recognizing the fact that there's levels to everything, I think that really changed my life a lot, because I know that I started wrestling very late, right? I started wrestling like halfway through my sophomore year. I missed most of my sophomore year, and I wrestled most of my junior year. I'm getting better and better and better. But I think being a senior, like I placed like this such a big expectation on myself to do well, and when I didn't meet that threshold within the first few weeks, like I felt horrible because I look at all these kids around me who've been wrestling since they were like 5 years old, 10 years old, and I desired like to be as good as them. And I think because of that, there were all these mood swings I was going through for such a long period of time. Because I'm like, why am I so bad at this? But then if you look objectively, like I haven't put in the time to be good at this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you look at the fact that you're surrounding yourself with some of the best to ever do it, like if I go to like a practice at Elite with some of the best wrestlers in the state, obviously I'll come out of that maybe feeling like, well, I kind of suck. But also if you compare like the different levels there are to things, like if I look back at, you know, where what maybe was like 3 years ago and the people I was with then, and if you look at how much you like overcome that, I think it helps to put the expectations into like a perspective where you have something in front of you, so you're actually moving towards some goal, but you're also like looking at the fact that there's so many levels to anything you want to pursue, whether like a sport or a career or anything. I think like definitely the last month or so, that's been one of like the biggest learnings I've had.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, there's definitely is levels. I had the same feeling. I walked into my Calc BC class, and I'd always been decent at math. Like, I really liked math as a subject. I'd say probably one of my favorite subjects. Come to Peddie school, and there are math geniuses all around. And I think that's something, like, I've struggled with is, like, oh my gosh, like, I used to be good at this, like, why am I not excelling so well? Like, what's going on? I think it's so true. Like, everyone comes in at a different point with a different background of experience and training and whatever it may be. And so just being, like, at the end of the day, being content with yourself and knowing, kind of like measuring yourself to yourself. Like, I was here my freshman year, and now I'm here. So, like, that's really good progress. And then, but comparing yourself to others, like, that's when you lose joy, lose happiness. Like, I know there's a saying, comparison is the thief of joy. So when you compare yourself to others, it's like, oh, like, that guy has this and that, and she can do that, but I can't. And then you like look at yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, like, why are you so bad? But really it's like, that's when you lose that joy and that happiness. But when you realize how far you've come as an individual, then you can realize and be happy with yourself.
You mentioned that we should strive to have a positive outlook on life. How do you think we find that positive outlook, or what ways have you found that have helped you to maybe reframe the world in more of a positive way?
I think thinking about others first is something that like creates a positive outlook. And I think in today's society, it's a very selfish society and always about me, which to an extent I understand. Like, you need to be able to survive in the world, like, get on with your life, like, be stable economically, this and that. But I think thinking of others before yourself is major, because when you look at others, especially those who are less privileged than you look at them and you're like, oh my gosh, like, that's terrible. Like, they can't even like go and get the right amount of food, or like so-and-so's grandmother's sick, things like that. You realize, oh, like, why am I complaining? Like, there's so many, like, I have so many beautiful things in this world, and there's so many good things in this world that I shouldn't be complaining and putting, like, this little thing is like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. Because like I said earlier, like, oh, I don't have phone service when someone else's, you know, dad or mom or something is struggling with something. So like having that positive outlook. I think too, one thing that I've noticed whenever I'm like stressed in the day or feeling kind of down is, this is what I would tell myself during golf, is to look up. And to look up into the sky. Because it's so vast, it's so beautiful. Depending on where you're at, you can see like a beautiful tree line, you can see the clouds in the sky, the big blue sky. And to just look up and like realize, this is me. I'm just like this tiny little person on earth, and like everything is gonna be okay. Like, I'm here, the nature's surrounding me, it's beautiful. And yeah, that always just helped me like look up. And just kind of like, instead of like, you know, when people get defeated, they're always like, shoulders down, looking down. But looking up, not only does it like physically make you feel more confident. Like there's a lot of things with like body language, and when your shoulders are up, you present yourself well, you feel more confident, you feel better. And I think like that's part of it. Like looking up, you're standing up straight, you're feeling better, more confident, ready to attack the day. And so yeah, I think just like being positive about things also helps when you have tough situations. Like, yeah, this is really tough, and I could either sit here and complain about it and be negative, or I could be positive and be like, I'm gonna get through this and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, the looking up strategy is very interesting. I read somewhere that just sitting up with like your back straight, just doing that increases your serotonin levels, which is pretty insane. So I know you were back-to-back Javelin state champion chances. Would you say that, I don't know like how many years it took you to reach that point, but would you say that when you were going competing, or even if you're still competing today, do you place like quite big expectations on yourself to do well? Or what is your approach to some of these more recent like javelin tournaments or just track tournaments in general?
I'd say I always would strive to do my best, and definitely from a younger age, like struggling when I was younger in like high school, I would struggle with some people out there being like getting down on myself if I wouldn't perform well in a sport, or even on a test, or something didn't go well with a friend, really getting down on myself. But I think the more you do an activity, the more confidence you get in that. And two, like I would always strive to be my previous best. But what I realized with track, and I think this applies to everything, is that you're not always gonna like constantly be doing the best and outworking what you previously did. So it's just a game, and it's a game of like being patient and just waiting for that day when everything goes right, when the timing is perfect for the javelin, when you're just feeling the rhythm, your arm is ready to go, put some mustard on it, get it out of there. And so definitely early on in my high school career would put a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations. Oh, I need to do really, really good. But there's so many with track meets, there's so many of them that it's like, it's okay if I don't do too well this one track meet. And within the track meet, like specifically the javelin, like there's things I need to work on. And so even if like, oh, like my throw didn't go this far, but I executed this part of the javelin approach really well, like that's a plus. I'd say in the state championship competitions though, I would put a lot of pressure on myself, especially after winning the first one. I'm coming back and trying to defend the title. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta do this. But I've always done well performing under pressure. So in a sense, it did help me to put some pressure on myself and to have that pressure. And staying calm and collected too. In the javelin competition, you get 3 prelim throws. And if you are top 8, then you'll head to the finals and you get another 3 throws. And so I think I remember like the second state championship my junior year, I like barely got into the finals, like squeezed in there, just nerves, like anything, whatever it was, like so many different things that could change here and there. But I was like, I had that mentality, like I'm gonna go and win this, and just telling myself, like repeating that, like I'm gonna go win this. Like that really helped me like drive, even if there was a lot of pressure on myself. Go ahead and win that.
All right, next one. Champions do when they don't feel like doing.
Okay, this is a good one. My dad says this all the time, ever since I was a little kid. Champions do when they don't feel like doing. It's got to be his favorite quote. I think he says it like every day. He's probably my dad, Pat. He's probably one of the like reasons I've developed, luckily, like, and just by working hard into a good athlete. Because he's always been very active. He likes to run a lot. He'll lift weights, do whatever he can, and he's always like challenging himself, pushing himself, disciplining. Like he will not be outworked by anyone. And so I think the saying champions do when they don't feel like doing, like in order to succeed in life, in order to be a champion, you gotta like push through on those days when you're like, I don't want to be here, I do not feel well. Like you have to do it when you don't feel like doing it. And I think that's helped me in sports, in academics, just like really in anything in life. Just picking myself up, being like, gosh, if I don't want to be here, I mean, I gotta do it anyways. Like I'm already here, I might as well get the job done. And then it'll help me succeed in the future.
How do you overcome those moments where your mind is making all these excuses that, oh, it's okay today, it's okay to miss this whatever activity you might need to do that you don't feel like doing? How have you found you've been able to overcome those moments?
A classmate in high school asked me a similar question. She was like, how do you always like, you're just ready to go, like always having your assignments done, like same with sports, like you're always motivated. And what I tell myself when in those moments, or I'm like, gosh, I don't want to do this homework right now. It's like, or I don't want to do this workout, like I'm just gonna like have to get through it, is I tell myself, if I do it now, I can rest later. I can like relax later, like then I can have peace, enjoy later. But what happens is there's never later, because then there's the next workout, there's the next homework, the next test. And then I just keep telling myself the same thing. And what it does is it cultivates success. And so even though like right now I consciously know, like when I'm telling myself those things and I consciously know like there's never going to be later, like I never will actually get to rest. I mean, there is times obviously I get to, but you know what I mean? Like there's always the next thing. I still tell myself in those moments, like you got to do it now because then your reward will be later. And I think that just kind of helps me. It's almost like tricking myself into thinking like, I can do this.
So this next one's a fun one as well. It's 2 words. Just chill.
Just chill. Yeah, this is my coach, my freshman year for basketball, Coach Bledsoe. He was one of the assistant coaches. I was fortunate enough to be starting point guard from the get-go my freshman year. And it was like, I was really excited for the role, but as point guard, like you're in control of the court, of what's going on. Like you're hearing from the coach and then you're telling the rest of your teammates like you're the commander, the general on the floor. And that was hard as a freshman because I obviously had respect for the upperclassmen on the team, like the kids who had been there, the girls who had been there before me, like they kind of know what was going on. I'm just a new little baby freshman, like thrown into this. It was hard to like give orders to people who were older than me. And so that was an adjustment, and too, like a lot of pressure on myself, a lot of like antsy, like transitioning from middle school basketball to high school basketball. It's like a pretty big jump, especially when you're playing against like girls who are 3-4 years older than you. And so that was difficult, but Coach Bledsoe would say, just chill. Because on the court, like when you're on the court, you have to have composure. And like I was saying, as the point guard, if I don't have composure, then my teammates don't have composure. So just being able to chill, like it sounds so simple, but it's so true. And I really like that quote, and I think it helps me in everything. Like I'm glad, again, I was looking through my quotes and I saw that one, I was like, gosh, that is a good quote. Like I need to make sure I remember that.
Now, it seems like just chill is kind of contradictory to do it when you don't feel like doing it. Like, oh, be so disciplined, but also kind of just chill. So how do you draw the line in between those two, and how do you find the balance?
Yeah, that is true. It's kind of like, just chill is just like relax. And then I was saying earlier, like, oh, you gotta go. I think there is that line. There's a balance of like the sense of like chilling is like, for me, I took it as like being relaxed in the moment, composed in my mind, like not all frantic, being under control in a sense. But having that control will then help me to be able to like go and like get through. And I think like the mind is like a really important part of anything that you do. And so having that positivity or the confidence or just being composed is really important. And I think you get the best work done when you're not like, your mind isn't racing and you're just able to zone in, kind of relax, but then zone in on that task and then go ahead and dive into that.
So the notion of just chill makes sense when you're in a stressful situation, right? Like you're playing a basketball game, you're getting some tasks done, and it's useful there because it brings your mind to kind of more of a analytical state that you can deal with the problem at hand. Would you say that it also applies to maybe more bigger than like a simple task kind of problem where it's like, you know, be overthinking about something, or there's some larger problem you may be facing that is causing you to overthink? Because I know that me as a person, I tend to overthink a lot, and over like the last year or so, I've like found ways to more relax and chill and prevent myself from overthinking. So would you say that you've seen yourself maybe in a similar situation where you've kind of applied this mindset to more of a bigger problem than just a singular task or a in the moment kind of problem?
Yeah, I'd say a huge challenge I faced recently, well, like in the past year or so, was when so like I mentioned, going to West Point, and I was supposed to be there this year, but fortunately I got injured again, and guess what? It was from overuse from basketball, which is kind of ironic, but anyways, there's, like craziness. When I found out, like, injured, I need knee surgery, like, I'll be delayed in going to West Point. My mind, like you were saying, like, you overthink everything, mind goes frantic, like, I'm thinking worst case scenario, like, oh my gosh, like, West Point won't even want me anymore, like, there's no other options, what am I gonna do? And so, I think what I turned to was, I will say, like, I'm a religious person, so I'm a Catholic, so I turn to prayer and like just same thing, like kind of just chilling, giving it to God, and it was a really difficult moment because I thought I had everything planned out, like plans ready to go, and out of nowhere, boom, everything changes. But definitely not at first. I was not chilling. I was like, oh my gosh, I have no clue what to do. But yeah, just being able to like, especially deciding what I was going to do this year, because Peddie was an option, or taking a gap year was an option. Those were the two things I was kind of trying to choose between. And there came a point where it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So yeah, I just kind of chilled, took my time. I asked lots of people for advice, what they thought. And I think that helped. I kind of took some of the pressure off myself. It was like, I'm just going to go see what these people think. And then also just prayed a lot about it, just trying to have some peace in my heart and my mind, to figure out which would be best. And then eventually, by just relaxing, not rushing into any decisions, I ended up here, and I want to be here right now on this podcast.
It's a great story. Sophia, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to close off with?
I think that's mainly it. Like, I appreciate your time, Sharia. It's been great. And yeah, I hope you get more, or listeners can learn anything from my story. I like the quotes that we threw in there. Good quotes, and I'd say like just listening to other people, and if they say like meaningful quotes, like keeping those with you is a huge thing that I'm glad I've done and that I've got to share with you, Sharia, and anyone who's listening.
Yeah, I think quotes are really cool because they're really easy to just like remember, and then just remembering one quote can just help you access like this whole like set of solutions to a problem, and then they can just help you live a better life.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Sharia.
Thank you so much. Have a good one. If you enjoyed that episode, then you're gonna love this episode right here. Click that link now to watch that episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.